So the area rule was yesterday. Today we're going to talk about a couple different rules. We're going to talk about the sine and cosine rule, and I'm going to split this into two different lessons. One on the sine rule, one on the cosine rule. So for exercise 1C, you're going to have to do both of them. So we're going to start with the sine rule. So when we're talking about trigonometry, the definition of trigonometry is that it is the study. Trigonometry is the study of the relationships between sides and angles in a triangle. So it's the relationship between all the sides and the angles that are inside a triangle. Singular, not plural. So we know from trig ratios that there's already a relationship. We know from trig ratios, when I'm saying trig ratios, my sine, my cosine, my tangent, that there is already a relationship with the sine of an angle. Already a relationship with the sine of an angle. Now you guys may not know this, but on your calculator it's S-I-N, and we always say sine for that. It's actually the incorrect word spelling. Sine is spelt with an E, like it is up here. Okay. So for a triangle, and hopefully my ink to shape is going to work just as good as it has before. Oh, look at that. So we'll say that this is C, that's B, and that's A. Well, this here is going to be angle A, that is going to be angle B, and that is going to be angle C. We use capitals for our angles, we use lowercase letters to represent our sides. The sine rule states, okay, now this is very important, A, lowercase a because it's the side, over sine A angle is equal to B over sine B, which equals C over sine C. Alright, A over sine A equals B over sine B, which equals C over sine C. That is true for all triangles. Now, or we can just flip it around. So sine A over A equals sine B over B, which equals sine C over C. Okay. And that's really helpful for us because it helps us find unknown sides and angles if we know some other information, okay? So the sine rule is just relating that the ratios of the sides to the angles are equal to each other. So it's often just going to be used to find the values of unknown sides. So find the value of x. If we want to try and find the value of x, well, for my first one, it's going to be something like, that looks way too equilateral. Let's try it again. Okay. So let's say that this angle in here, that's going to be 60 degrees. this is going to be 70 degrees, and this is 8.2 centimeters, and this is x centimeters. So, in case we didn't pick up on it before, we're always comparing ratios of the opposite side. Sorry guys, that should have been lowercase the entire time. A is always going to be to sine A because it's opposite. C is always going to be to sine C because it's opposite. So, in terms of my equation here, it's going to be 8.2 over sine 60 equals x over sine 70. Now I just have to multiply both sides by sine 70. So it's going to be 8.2 sine 70 over sine of 60 is equal to x. And so x is going to equal 8.9 centimeters. All right. Now let's see if this is also going to work with that geometry tool I was using with my calculator before. So if I go into menu, geometry, let's draw my triangle again. So there we go. This side down here, I want that to be 8.2. So now that's locked in at 8.2. My angle, it's not 59, I want it to be 70 degrees. Lock that in. And now let's lock this angle in. That wants to be 60. Lock it in. So now let's see if this side here is going to be 8.9. Well, look at that. 8.89 or 8.9. So that is a much easier way to do it if we have our calculator. But again, we always still want to use it in that non-calc solving method so we know exactly what we're doing. If you can do math without a calculator, you are a much better mathematician for it because you understand the question. I'm always a big believer of that. So try and do that as much as possible with these questions. Well, now we're going to have that our unknown is an angle. So x degrees, this is going to be 120 degrees. That's 10.3 centimeters. This is 7.1 centimeters. Now, I just want to scroll back up to the beginning of our sine rule. This is if you don't know the side. If you don't know a side. Here, if you don't know an angle. It's going to be much easier to multiply from the denominator rather than divide from the numerator. So we're going to want to use this second equation form here because that's going to be much easier to help us solve for our unknown angle. Okay. So that's going to turn into sine of x over 7.1 is equal to sine of 120 over 10.3. Now I'm just going to multiply by 7.1, so sine of x equals 7.1 sine 120 over 10.3. So x is equal to the inverse sine of all of it. And that's going to give me an answer of 36.7 degrees. Well, let's do that on my calculator just to show you guys how we want that done. So I'm going to go to main and let's make 2 of these. So keyboard, I want to go to trig and I want to go to sine of that. Shift fraction 7.1 times sine of 120 divided by 10.3 equals 36.65 or 36.7. Okay, and that is how we're going to do the sine rule to find the unknown elements of different triangles.